The Ministry of Health and Wellness is reporting that cases of hand, foot, and mouth disease are being observed in some schools. In light of this, we've invited consultant pediatrician Dr. Jadine Knight-Laws to educate us about this morning. Doc, welcome to Smile Jamaica.
Thank you very much for having me.
Doc, have mercy. We can't listen. In Jamaica, hear about one more thing.
One more thing, we're going.
So let's walk through this hand, foot, and mouth disease. What is it?
So hand, foot, and mouth disease is a acute viral illness caused by many viruses that results in sores to the hands, the feet, the mouth. But you can also have general symptoms of just feeling unwell with fever and sore throat.
So viral meaning it's just, where it come from?
Yeah, so, you know, basically, yeah, it's just out there. The fact that it's viral is usually a good thing because what that means is that the body will naturally get rid of it within like 7 to 10 days. But those 7 to 10 days can definitely be hard for parents because during that time, the sores in the mouth especially are painful. And with painful sores in the mouth comes not wanting to eat, not wanting to drink, and then that can lead to dehydration. So that's why it's so important to have this public education.
Yeah. Viral means how is it spread?
All right. So spread is usually by a number of ways. So if you have direct contact with body fluids, so body fluids means mucus from the nose, feces, if you have the fluids from the sores themselves, so the blisters, as well as even coughing or sneezing from an infected person that travels through the air. And if you breathe that in, you can also contract.
Which is why the kids are spreading it in the schools.
Especially because of the kids.
Oh, okay.
Because of, you know, how they like to play, they share toys. So not just direct person to person, but on surfaces. So if they sneeze and then they touch the doorknob or they play with that toy over there and another kid comes and plays with it, or if they use the potty and they never really wash their hands so great, you know, that's a means of spread. So daycares and preschools, very, very high spread.
Yeah, we've seen it a couple of times in Jamaica. Is there a reason in particular or a time of year that this happens?
Yeah, so usually it's around this time, but even more commonly sometimes in the fall. Jamaica doesn't really have the season, so to speak. So, you know, you can't really pinpoint a time, but this is usually the time, yes.
Okay. So what are we looking for in our children? The usual period from initial infection to the onset of signs and symptoms, 3 to 6 days. What are we going to see initially? How is that going to progress throughout?
All right. So the first thing that you may see is your child just doesn't look like their usual self. You know, they may be a little less active. The appetite will start to go down, and fever is really characteristic, especially within the first 24 to 48 hours. Thereafter, so after the first 1 to 2 days, you start to get the rash. And the rash first looks like just red bumps or dark bumps, because you know we're people of color. And then after that, you'll start to see fluid in the rash, and those are called blisters. And of course, the rash in the mouth, which you may not see as the parent, but sometimes they'll start to drool or they'll tell you that the throat is sore, they have some pain.
Oh, little punkies. So what do? We just make it run its course? I mean, don't burst the blisters, what do we do?
So important not to burst the blisters, because remember I said that that's one way of contact in terms of catching it, with being in contact with those fluids. But what we do, we give them a little extra TLC at this time for sure. But with the pain and the fever, paracetamol, very important to choose paracetamol, not aspirin, parents, please. And you also want to make sure that you keep up.
Before you move on.
Well, aspirin causes a disease called Reye syndrome, which can be very fatal. So we don't want that.
Okay.
So we prefer that you give paracetamol.
Okay.
And I was saying that's so important to keep your child hydrated, please. So important. So even though the throat is sore and they have the sores in the mouth, they may not want to drink at this time, but offer lots and lots of fluids and look out for the signs of dehydration.
Yeah. Can an adult get it from a child?
Yeah, man. Anybody
Anybody
can
can
get
get it?
Yeah, man.
What you said?
yeah,
What you
say.
said?
Come, baby.
Doc, you know, all along I'm sitting here thinking this is the poor children, the poor children.
No, man. Baby just born to grandma at home. But the thing is, it's really mostly common in those who are less than 5. And that's because, you know, they're at that point. 1, they have the exposure we spoke about. But 2, the immune system is not as built up
Developed.
as you and I, who would have, you know, probably been exposed, and your immune system wash it clean already. But anybody can get it. So we all should be vigilant.
How do we know when to take our child to the doctor, to the hospital?
Such a great question. Thank you. So 1, if you are trying to give your child something to drink or eat and they're not taking anything at all, call your physician and go to the hospital. 2, if you have the fever that's going longer than 3 days, because remember I said really 1 to 2 days, take your child to the doctor. Also, if you notice that the child is very, very droopy, not moving around, not talking, you know, outside of that usual looking sick feeling, take your child to the doctor. And then also importantly, if you notice that these sores look infected, so they get red, you see pus, it looks extra swollen, then you need to take your child to the doctor. And dehydration, not passing enough urine. So, you know, usually they would go ever so often, 4 hours pass, 6 hours pass, no urine. Urine looks super dark. Also, if there's dry mouth, he's crying, but no tears coming out of Johnny's eyes. The mouth, you know, no saliva, all of that, important. And of course, if you have any concern, we're here to help, so you can take your child to the doctor at that time too.
Yeah. There's some things that we'd have learned before COVID, but that we probably would have practiced more. The hand washing and things like that, I think are applicable to this as well.
So important. Hand washing, hand washing, hand washing. And my kids, they're like pros. They're even better at it than the adults, because it's very important to get the surface of your hands clean so that you don't spread the contact. And then a very important part of prevention too is also disinfecting surfaces, toys, common areas, not kissing at this time, not, you know, being so close with the hugging because of that direct contact.
Okay, and then what about now contagion? Because I'm reading here where this says, after the first week, although your child is most contagious during the first week, the virus can remain in his or her body for weeks after the signs and symptoms are gone.
Definitely.
And so they can infect others for up to how long?
So true. So even up to 3 weeks, actually.
What?
So what a lot of us physicians will say is that once the blisters are dry and it's over 10 days and you feel better, go right back to school. But yeah, studies have shown that even after 3 weeks, you can still get shedding of the virus through feces, especially.
So what would be your medical advice to parents as to when to send the children back out?
My medical advice would be that, you know, after the 10 days, it would be safe to go back. But then within that 3-week period, just be extra vigilant. Make sure you wash your hands, disinfect
the toys and so on.
Right.
So particularly persons who are caregivers of young children, daycares and so on, it's this particularly now, they have to be cautious.
Extra cautious. And what I really want to say too, that we have to be our brother's keeper. So if your child goes to daycare and you know that your child has hand, foot and mouth, let the daycare know, right? So that the other parents and guardians can be on the lookout, because early detection will prevent you from spreading it to somebody else. So our daycare or preschool teachers, yeah, they're the ones who really need to be extra vigilant. And this is the opportunity to revise the hand washing, revise the disinfecting and cleaning techniques of our surfaces and shared toys.
Well, we shouldn't be revising because COVID is still here, so we should have been
Still a cape.
Still a cape, Doc, still a cape. Woo! All right.
Doc,
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
never know, say we could have get it.
And me neither.
Can't take no more. Jadine consultant, or should I say Dr. Jadine? No, okay, let's try that again. Consultant pediatrician, Dr. Jadine Knight-Law is telling us about hand, foot, and mouth disease. We learned a lot this morning from her.
We did.